Hello, it is me, Binks. This is my extra channel, not my regular channel. Make sure to freaking subscribe. We have what is, without a doubt, the biggest OTA in the history of Marvel Snap. This OTA will change the game. Everything's going to be different, and we're going to talk about it right now with you. I did get early access to this, as I do as part of the Marvel Snap Content Creator Program, so that's why this is releasing right on time, but we're going to look at it right here. So the first one is Elsa Bloodstone, 2/2 plus 3 power to 2/2 plus 2 power. Now this is a pretty anticipated change. I feel like most people have seen that 3 power added to cards goes kind of crazy, especially when you can scale and multiply it. Saw that with Silver Surfer in the past. We saw it with Ronin at one point, but now Elsa's going down to plus 2 power. So they said that, you know, they were being very risky with Elsa. Just to kind of like paraphrase what it talks about in here, there's so many good 2-cost cards that can just keep getting these buffs and make up for the power dynamic. So Elsa is going to make up for those power inefficiencies. And the Loki and Elsa package has appeared in a ton of different top performing decks. I think this is a huge change. I think that this goes from Elsa being an auto include to almost in every deck right now, which is a bit of a problem whenever any deck is like, hey, if you're not playing this card, you're kind of throwing, and just turns into a very strong card for certain archetypes. So I think that Elsa will still see a ton of play, still one of the premier cards in the game, but just the power level getting taken a pretty solid chunk, which is crazy that the card is still going to see a lot of play. Loki plus 1 energy from 3/5 to 4/5. Everything else stays the same. Kind of surprised about this. I really thought that they were going to wait for a patch to kind of adjust Loki and exactly how he's been. I haven't read this one yet, so we'll read it together. Loki's been a tricky card for us. Our internal Loki decks weren't as boldly aggressive as a lot of the top ones proved to be. There were so many different versions after release that we wanted to get a better understanding of his core strengths out in the wild before making any adjustments. And yes, having Loki be a top card for the Loki season was a goal of gameplay, the same way we wanted. Move to the matter of Spideyverse to destroy in Big Japan. Loki Strange seemed to best realize at the top of the ladder. He's a card that really lets players leverage their skill with more average performance at lower rakes. That being said and done, he was a turn of Loki offering a lot of freedom and adaptability as a 3-cost card with high power, as that let him compete for priority especially well. We're hoping this change leads to Loki decks that cares more about which cards they get and how to play them, as opposed to slamming raw power at an efficient cost. 1 energy is big for Loki. I think the card's still going to be really strong, but this is huge. I mean, taking Elsa and Loki and just kind of like hamstringing them and making them as like the cornerstones of decks be significantly worse is going to open up a lot of other things, especially with some of the changes down below. Collector. When a card enters your hand from anywhere except your deck plus 2 power, goes from 2/0 to 2/2. So Loki ideally is more balanced. Collector goes back to 2/2. I've been telling people this. Everyone was like freaking out. It's like, hey, once they fix Loki, the Collector will be back. They brought him right back to his former stats. Now I do think that this is gonna make the Loki deck just about as strong, because like losing 1 energy on Loki but then getting 2 power back on your Collector probably keeps Loki just about the same level, but we'll see. I mean, I think that this is a big change. I'm excited for the meta. Angela, this is a huge one. 2/0 plus 2 power to 2/2 plus 1 power. So Angela kind of goes from like a 2/0 that can get all the way to a 2/6 to a 2/2 that can get to a 2/5, but it really, like the power of Angela was getting to 2/8 so easily, and if you expect your opponent doesn't have a way to leverage it, just getting it way bigger than 2/8, go to like 2/12. We've actually been avoiding changes for a while, as many other adjustments, trying to rein in the Angela package and provide more diverse ways to build early power while retaining a linchpin card for some decks. However, those efforts have only been dragged other cards down as Angela continues to score, accumulating in the week Angela in 4 of our top 5 decks. Yeah, it's tough. Angela's just been a problem card for a really, really long time. So I think that Angela going to plus 1 power kind of narrows her scope for what she can do. She's still probably pretty damn good, especially in flood decks, having it to her at 2/5 pretty consistently. And now she's a little bit better if you play her later. So Angela will still be around quite a bit. You know, once you get 2 triggers on her, she's the same, and then after that she gets less, but if you get less triggers, she's better, so you can play her a little bit earlier. Interesting change, and I think that it kind of like helps fight some of this like kind of kitty Elsa stuff that's just taking over. Sauron 3/3 to 3/2. I feel like Sauron is so strong and no one realizes how good the card is. This change may seem so surprising, but Sauron has quietly been one of the strongest cards in the game for a really long time. Yeah, the stats show that Sauron, when you play this card, you're winning the game so often. Sauron decks are almost never outside the top 10, often in the top 5, while Sauron himself is one of our highest win rate cards. There are other elements at play. Sauron doesn't see play in many other decks that does inflate his metrics. The deck has finally crossed the line for us. Don't worry, Sarin fans. We have some potential new tools planned for him in the future. So new bad ongoing cards. It's exciting. Yo, Uatu 1-1 to 1-2. That's really cool. I mean, they're just like, hey, we were a little bit safe with it. So really, really cool to see Uatu go to 1-2. Maybe you start being interested in playing the card. Very interesting. Hellcow from a 4-6 to a 4-8. Huge, man. Discarding 2 cards used to be really good, and then MODOK came out, and it's like, why would you discard 2 cards when you just discard your whole hand? But being a 4-8 is pretty decisive. As a 4-8, maybe even start considering in some of these decks that just try and like play at the very end of the game, like a Zabu style deck, if you can try and play Zabu right now. Very, very interesting. Gives a more distinct high power for decks, less targeted discarding. Hopefully it leads to a continued widening of the discard space. Super love the Hellcow change. I don't know how much more play it'll see, but I'm really excited to see people mess around. 4-8 is a really good stat line. Really good stat line. And the most awesome one for Binks fans out there with your amazing variant, Spectrum from a 6-5 to a 6-7. The change from a 6-5 to a 6-7. Spectrum has languished for a while among new players. She tends to be abandoned relatively quickly for Odin and Heimdall, who work more with the potent set of cards. Among competitive players, she can often feel like a conditional Dr. Doom that is just a straightforward bump for her. Higher, further, faster, baby. So I really love the Spectrum change. I think that Spectrum has kind of been put in this weird position and in this little bubble, just kind of like outside of where she needs to be. So 2 extra power is pretty damn substantial. You could start thinking about things like Spectrum Ramp, where you just play some like powerful ongoing cards, like maybe like a Iron Man Onslaught Claw type thing, and then you just also have Spectrum to buff those up too. And as a 6-7, whichever lane you play her in, now she can compete in it way longer. Spectrum actually used to be like a 6-4, surprisingly. So this is a really, really good change. Excited to see my brand new shiny Spectrum variant as a 6-7 as opposed to a 6-5. Very, very cool. So as far as big changes, I think Angela, Elsa, Loki all taking a big hit is really going to change the metagame. I get really excited for these times. Because right now it's starting to get to the point where it's like, if you're not running like Elsa Loki at the top level, you're kind of throwing, and Angela's in that deck too. So now that deck took so many hits and like took so many bullets, and then the height of the power level cards can be, it really opens up this design space for deck builders to try and find some new things. So Loki, Elsa, Angela, all great. The Collector going to a 2-2 back now that Loki's, well, hopefully held in check a little bit longer. I don't know how much more what energy is going to do for Loki. I'm kind of interested to see what happens with that. I think Loki is going to be okay. I think Elsa might start getting cut from things. Sauron getting knocked down is good. Uatu's great. Hellcow great. Spectrum great. Just a wonderful set of changes. Bravo to Second Dinner. Super excited to check out the metagame, and I hope that you do as well. Once again, make sure you subscribe. This is my extra channel, and I'll catch you out in the battlefield. Peace!